On today's episode of the Glue Guys, I'm sick.
Come on. Get your matzo ball, sans matzo ball soup going.
I got my chicken noodle soup for the YouTube audience.
You'll be fine.
Like the rest of the Nets team, we'll turn it up. We'll turn up the notch. We're notching it. Talk Ben Simmons.
We had a big win and a big loss, Mike. That's what we'll talk about, and all kinds of cool stuff. I'm here to carry the load, Mike. Put the load on me, brother.
Welcome back to the Glue Guys. This is Mike here. Say hello, Brian.
Hello.
Check us out on Twitter at PKGlueGuys, Netsdaily.com, The Athletic. Catch us up on the paywall, TheAthletic.com/GlueGuys. Brian.
Michael.
The Nets we're just so close to being back. So close. How are you? How are you, Brian?
We are tantalizingly close to being back, Mike. And that's maybe the theme of the show today. You know, I realized after I went to bed last night, I was thinking about this team, and I went to bed and I was like, that was a perfect distillation, a microcosm of just world-beating, world-class, high-energy, big vibes, 60-point game from Kyrie, put on one of the, best single individual performances I've personally ever seen as a bro who watches hoops. And then the next night he can't play, and we take a sad boy loss to Spencer Dinwiddie's Dallas Mavericks. That was it. That was it right there. My green screen's acting funny.
Yeah, Brian's green screen's really showing out for St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah,
it's like the green will pop out.
St. Patty's. I'll try to fix it. Anyways, that was my takeaway, Mike, and it. We can get into that. Did you watch the games? Did you like what you saw?
The Kyrie game against the Mavs. I mean, I'll ask you this. Did you wish Kyrie had continued to play in that fourth quarter? I did. I wanted to see. I thought we could have got to 80 in that game. I think Kyrie just could have kept putting up buckets and scoring at least 70. When he was at 60, they took him out 8:35 left in the fourth quarter. I think they could have just done a Kyrie-centric offense and gotten buckets.
Possibly.
But
I don't think about what ifs like that, Mike. I just, I don't traffic that. I'm enjoying the 60. I'm savoring it. It was it was otherworldly. And he's just been otherworldly since he came back, to the point where I was sort of suggesting, do you think that in his mind he's got a placebo effect going of he's like, I'm unvaxxed. I believe in the power of the unvaxxed. Everyone else is vaccinated, so they are lesser than. And now I'm playing to a higher level, and now it's a psychosomatic kind of result that we're seeing here, because he's just been unbelievable, Mike, since he's just been back. I mean, when he plays, it's just he's having a ridiculous season at this point.
Is that, in that scenario, does he also have some recognition of the fact that he's playing only half the games and he's the freshest player in the NBA?
If this placebo delusion is to really take effect, it needs to be purely about the vaccination status, I think.
It did make me think, so Wilt Chamberlain's 100 points in a game is one of the great sports stats in sports. It's one of the great ones. I mean, it's thought to be unbreakable. It's going to be very hard to reach that place. But I do think it's got to be this situation where a guy, basically you have to game plan around the idea that you are going to go for 100. So you will need to sit a bunch of games going in. You'll need to pick the perfect team to play against. The Orlando Magic is a great team with which to try to score 100. And you need to go into the game saying, I'm going to do everything I can to score 100 points. Because I don't think it's possible if you're a regular NBA player like Kevin Durant and you play every game and, you're tired. There's some diminishing ability there because you're slightly tired. Kyrie, though, he has this amazing opportunity to make history because he's playing half the season. So that he is showing the blueprint for how to break Wilt.
I like it.
I have a question for you for the Dallas game.
Yeah.
Do you take – so obviously the game was a super fun game. The Nets, of course, lost in a last-second shot to Spencer Dinwiddie. Just before that, Kevin Durant hit an amazing shot in his own right.
Yeah.
The Nets basically gave away two decent-sized leads throughout the game.
Yeah.
And they lost the fourth quarter by 34 points for the Mavericks, 20 points for the Nets. Do you take away from that game as being a positive sign, or is it a negative that they lost?
Well, I think, why I say it's a microcosm is that, I think basically here's what I'm going to go out and take a bold hot take stance. Our championship dreams hinge on Kyrie getting vaccinated. That's been said before, but I'm just going to say at this point in the season, there's. We'll talk about it maybe later. We got some emails about some like spikes going on.
Do it now, man.
Spikes going on in Hong Kong. There is a surge in other places in the world. If I'm a betting man, these mandates are not going to go anywhere. If I'm someone who wants to stack W's and win chips, I am going to say like we need to take control of this situation, have some agency, and here comes Niraj Patel.
Dr. Patel, how are you, sir?
Hey,
Look
back
at him.
again.
We're doing a pop-up.
Hopping in.
We're live, so we're going. We're just rolling.
Oh, love it. All right.
So
How you guys doing? Sorry
we wanted to
interrupt.
bring Dr. Niraj Patel in because obviously as the continuing struggle in the Nets world is always a medical issue that's popping up. Dr. Patel, maybe other people didn't hear you the first time you're on the show. Give people your CV again. What do you do and who are you?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Niraj Patel. I'm an orthopedic surgeon. I'm out here in Chicago. My specialty, or my niche, I guess you would say, is pediatric orthopedic sports medicine. So mostly take care of children and adolescents with sports injuries. So ACL tears, meniscus injuries, things like that. Original East Coast guy from Edison, New Jersey, lived in New York for many years as well before I came out to the Midwest. So that's what I do. And so I take care of a lot of these similar injuries in slightly younger patients, basically.
And what's in the background there? What's that Nets signed? There seemed like some
Oh
signed
yeah. So coming to you live from the top floor of my little house here in Chicago. But that is a like mini backboard from Barclays. So what year was that? What year was Rondé Hollis Jefferson a rookie? Whatever year that was.
2015 maybe?
Something like that. Yeah. So I was
right.
a season ticket holder in Brooklyn before I moved. So the first 5 years in Brooklyn, I had season tickets from 2012 to 2017, and so
those were good years, man.
There were some rough years there too, but overall it was great. I mean, for me it was like the bucket list come true, right? I was like, wait, I can get season tickets to my favorite team, and go, like, great. So basically one day after a game they had an event where you can like go down and get people to sign stuff. Actually, I think there were a couple of them, so I brought that backboard to a couple of those events and got it signed up by bunch of the OG Brooklyn roster. So there's like Karis LeVert's on there. I think Brooke Lopez, Rondé, a bunch of guys like that.
The process.
Reggie Evans is on there. Yeah.
Oof.
That's Reggie Evans.
Yeah.
Rub that one off. Come on.
Yeah.
I hear that the Nets are selling a new piece of paraphernalia, the epidural that they gave Ben Simmons. Dr. Patel, please. Obviously, you say you specialize in joints and ligaments and stuff like that. And the spine isn't that, if I'm correct. But I think you know more than we do about. Well, Brian is a back injury sufferer, so he's basically on the same level.
I had
as
a back
you.
surgery, so you become an amateur. Back
What have I
specialist.
feel like last time we were talking about your Achilles or something like that, weren't we?
I've talked about how I broke my pinky by getting shot in the hand with a t-shirt cannon at MSG. That's a true story. That's a true story. And further reason why I hate the Knicks. Yeah.
I was gonna say that's just another reason not to go to MSG.
It was perfect. But I did. I had the L5S1.
The L5.
Laser,
that's right near the Ben Simmons territory.
Discectomy. So I know a thing or two.
Okay, all right. Now, not to HIPAA and all that, not to pry here. Did they do any kind of like fusion sort of thing, or was it just
no fusion? Just going in and shaving off. I think they just shaved off part of 2 discs or something. I had I don't know. I had an atrophied disc or something just like withered and died. I don't know. It wasn't like a normal. I don't know. Yeah. So, anyways.
That sounds dramatic, but yeah.
So we know from Adrian Wojnarowski and Ramona Shelburne that Ben Simmons has an irritation of the L4 disc of the lower spine, but there's hope that he can return for a couple of regular season games before the Nets go into probably the play-in. Okay, they hear that information. Of course, we could all Google L4 disc, and we see a pretty picture of like the lower spine. But tell people, when you hear that information, what does it make you think?
Yeah, I mean, I guess in general, I would start to say that you don't love back injuries in high performance athletes to start with, right? So that's not ideal. And I think before, And I can't recall from his Philadelphia days if there was much more detail on like what specifically his back issues were at the time. We just knew that he had some flaring up of back pain every now and then. When you think about back pain, I think, it's two big categories that you put it in, right? And the most common is just your sort of run-of-the-mill kind of muscular mechanical back pain, so not necessarily related to like nerves or spinal cord or anything sort of serious like that, but just kind of wear and tear of some of the muscles and stuff like that down there. Dime a dozen, a lot of America has that, and you treat the symptoms, do a little therapy, most people do okay. I think what was a little bit worrisome just when this announcement came out yesterday was that all of a sudden we're talking about discs and nerves and stuff like that. So not to say that this is like some career-ending, ominous thing, but a little more serious than just if it was, my back gets a little sore after I'm very active and I just need to like rest it and work on some core strengthening or something like that. Right. So essentially what happens is, and we've got a firsthand expert here on the line too. So
yeah, absolutely.
I'm not gonna downplay your experience by any means.
Please do.
You've got these discs between the vertebrae, right? And so the discs are kind of like this sort of spongy structure, can kind of absorb some of that impact, especially in these guys that are running, jumping, doing high level stuff. Over time, what can happen either due to sort of just repetitive stress, trauma, that kind of thing from activity, or certainly old age. We know as you get older, these discs kind of like dry out as well. So from any combination of those two things, those discs can kind of flatten or bulge, dry out, that kind of thing. If they bulge or even herniate, which is when they like really pop out, what can happen is that they can impinge or basically butt up against the nerve roots as they come out of the spinal cord, right? So essentially from the spinal cord, you've got these little nerves, the nerve roots that then branch out at every vertebrae, and those then kind of branch out further into other nerves throughout the body. So what's probably happening here, it sounds like, is that L4, one of the discs around that L4 area is probably, bulging out a little bit or something like that, and probably irritating one of those nerve roots right next to it. And that seems to be, from what Woj is reporting anyway, what's causing Ben Simmons' pain.
From my experience, and I wonder if this is common, I had a very reliable way of triggering it, like my back just going out, which was just one very specific range of motion with my right leg. So basically the range of motion if you're pressing a gas pedal on a car is a very easy way to, which was why I ended up having it. I was like, I can't not drive a car. This is ridiculous. Yeah. So that's why I had to get it. But is that normal, or is that part of there's a very specific range of motion that makes it kind of go out or be difficult?
It certainly can be, just based on, it depends on, what the disc is doing in there and what part of it might be peeking out a little bit and that sort of thing. But yeah, absolutely. There may be a certain motion, oftentimes a certain type of twist or turn, something like that may then, make that disc rub up against that nerve a little bit more and then cause those symptoms. Right. And, the specific type of symptoms, aside from the pain, sometimes depending on the severity of the disc problem and the nerve root problem, you can get, sort of, people talk about sciatica, or essentially just radiating pain that starts kind of in that back and may shoot down the leg or something like that. When it's really bad, you can get weakness of the muscles, numbness, tingling, stuff like that. Doesn't sound like that's what Ben Simmons is going through right now. It sounds like it's mostly just pain, but still, it's not the greatest news in the world when you find out that it's a disc problem that's kind of causing these issues for him.
Yeah, I have a Bobby Marks tweet that was in the Netsdaily article that Bobby Marks is saying there's 4 documented cases of Simmons having a back issue prior to this season. He missed 9 games because of a nerve impingement in his lower back. And then there was a reoccurrence a month later, and that took him out into last May. So he had this going into that playoffs where he kind of crumbled. Now, Brian had a theory, and I agree. So
this is some real,
and I'm not even making fun of Ben Simmons' mental health, but mental stress can impact your back, gives you back pain if you are stressed, not physically but mentally under pressure, gives you back pain. Obviously, we don't think that's happening here because from what we heard, it's it was in the ramp up to him playing is when he got this back pain. I guess my real question is, we see him sitting there on the sidelines. Like, can we extrapolate anything from that? Like, he's sitting there in a probably an uncomfortable chair.
Yeah, those chairs
What
do
do we
not look
what do
like.
we make what do we make of that? Like, does because I made a big deal out of Joe Harris walking in the snow to get coffee in Cleveland,
Yep.
and maybe that re-injured him. You know, we don't know. We haven't got the information on that yet, Brian.
Yeah.
Don't laugh.
True.
Hope it was good coffee after all that,
There you go.
Should we feel any comfort the fact that Ben Simmons can go to games and, you know, sit in a chair for many hours? Does that mean anything or nothing?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to read into it a lot. I mean, I think you can generally say that, all right, well, this spine problem, this nerve root problem, this disc problem is not so severe that the guy can't sit in a maybe less than comfortable chair for long periods of time. You know, clearly he's in the practice facility here and there doing some things as well, not, you know, really kind of on court 1-on-1, 3-on-3 stuff yet, but you know, he's running around doing a little bit of stuff there. So certainly it's not as severe as somebody that's like, oh man, I can't walk at all, or, you know, like you were saying, like I can't drive my car, that kind of thing. So I think from that standpoint, probably encouraging, but at the same time, it's hard to say, you know, like you mentioned earlier, he might have a scenario where like there's one specific type of motion or activity or something like that then causes that pain to flare up, and so you know, he can't go back to fully what he wants to do. So I don't know how much we could read into that. I think the best we could say is that it's not a severe, you know, spine problem, but there's obviously shades of gray, you know, between 0 and 100. So tough to say for sure, I think.
So what are we looking for within Woj's story? There was a plan for Simmons to come back tomorrow to play basketball. That's not happening. He got this epidural. When do you think if let's say Steve Nash comes out tomorrow in his pregame press conference and says Ben is feeling better, can we take anything into that? Or, you know, like, what are we waiting for and what crumbs are we trying to understand whether Ben Simmons is going to be actually playing basketball for the Nets this year, or if he's going to get traded for Karl-Anthony Towns in the offseason?
Whoa, hold on. You can't just throw that one in there. Just dangle it.
That's my new theory.
That's a good one.
That's my new theory. Because the Timberwolves did show interest in Ben Simmons, and hey, who knows? Who knows? I mean, we saw the Karl-Anthony Towns tweet about Jersey Strong with Kyrie.
That's true.
Come on, I need something to have fun with here because the season's a tough one. But yeah, what are we looking for?
Yeah, I think, you know, so he had that epidural injection. And so just to kind of recap too, what that is it's typically a steroid injection that, you know, any specialists, spine specialists, even interventional radiology specialists can do it. Essentially, they use some kind of image guidance to make sure that the needle that's going in with the medication with the steroid is going into the right area, to the right, you know, disc level and all that. And then they inject some steroid to sort of cool down all that inflammation in that nerve root area, and kind of, you know, hoping that things simmer down after that. So, you know, the question is basically, how does he feel after that? If the injection works, then certainly there's a chance he can make it back, even potentially by the end of the regular season, potentially. You know, how long will that be? Tough to say for sure. There hasn't been a ton of research that I'm aware of done on like professional athletes that get lumbar, spine, lower back steroid injections. I know there was one relatively small study done on NFL players a while back. I think
there's a lot on the dark web. You know, I've been digging. I mean, I guess you don't go to the dark web medical journals like I do, but there's a lot out there. You got to dig for it though.
Dark web.
I'll send you some stuff. Just give me a VPN.
Fair enough. Yeah. So sticking to the above the counter stuff here.
Smart.
You know, there was a study that some folks did a while back. A bunch of like the NFL team surgeons, I think. And I want to say there were like 27 players over several years in the NFL that had lumbar spine epidural injections. Most of them were able to, the majority, I think 90% or something like that, were able to return to play. And I think if I remember correctly, the average time missed, this is NFL again, was the range was like 0 to 2 games. So you figure, you know, max of like 2 weeks out after the injection. Now, you know, what does that mean? I mean, could some of them still have had a little pain and just weren't back anyway because they were like, well, I feel good enough, was the pain totally resolved and everything? There's shades of gray there also, right? Like you got to think about that a little bit, but generally that's encouraging to say that, in the NFL, on a contact sport, that most of these guys were able to come back within a couple of weeks to play professional football. Not bad. I think, if I remember again correctly, the exact numbers, I think 3 out of the 27 ultimately ended up having surgery. So having something similar to what you were describing earlier with the discectomy and stuff like that. So 3 out of 27 eventually did have surgery. But, overall fairly encouraging, I would say, even though it's relatively small numbers in terms of being able to come back after this kind of thing. Now, again, how does that extrapolate to Ben Simmons? We got to see. Hopefully, yeah, he got the injection, and then within a couple of weeks, if he's feeling good, he starts making his way back. Now, again, with the Nets ramp up stuff, right? So I don't know how that plays into it, right? Do they wait a couple of weeks, he feels good, and then they start ramping up, and then it's 3-4 weeks before he's really even cleared to play. Tough to say. At which point then we're looking at playoffs, right? So
because backs are tricky, right? Because it's kind of a
tricky.
Use it or lose it kind of phenomenon too. Because there is a point where you do need to kind of. Is that what you like that much?
Steve Carell.
Yeah.
Is it true if you don't use it, you lose it?
Yeah, but I think that's there's some truth to it, because I remember I had my surgery, and then I was putting off PT because I was like, it doesn't feel very good, and you're not supposed to do that. That's not a good thing. So there is a certain Goldilocks zone where you're supposed to actually do things.
Right. Yeah, and that's obviously the benefit of being a pro athlete is that 24/7 you're surrounded by the best resources and equipment and all that for these kind of things. So presumably they'll work with him. They'll do a good job rehabilitating him after injection or anything else that he gets. But yeah, I think if this was, I don't know, 3 months ago or something, I think we'd all be like, all right, well, a couple of weeks here or there, not a big deal. But now we're in crunch time. Season's ending in 4 weeks or something, and the playoffs start. So it's tough. It's tough. I don't know. I think I'd be very cautiously optimistic he could potentially make it back by the end of this regular season if he feels better after the injection. But like I said, backs are tricky, so you just don't know. There's always that possibility that the injection doesn't work, also, right? Or it works for a little while and then he needs another one later, or then he needs surgery in the offseason.
I'm going earmuffs. I can't hear this. This is
this is horrible. Sorry, PTSD over here from my man down there. So we got to see, I think.
All right. Well, thank you so much for hopping on. Do you want people to follow you on Twitter? Is that,
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm always happy to
tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, so my Twitter handle is basically my name. So at Niraj M Patel. So Neeraj, M as in Mary, Patel. So I'm around. Love. I think I told you guys last time. I'm still less than a year on Twitter, but it's been fun, kind of been able to interact with the rest of Nets world and all that. Rather than living my own silo for so many years as a maniacal crazy Nets fan. So it's great.
All right. Well, thank you so much for popping on. This is so great when we can add a little true perspective. I mean, again, Brian is, deep embedded, and I'm in the dark web journals. So, we have a lot of knowledge here, but it's nice to get official knowledge, above the counter knowledge, right? That's what it is.
There you go.
All right. Thanks so much for hopping on, man.
Appreciate it, guys. Always a pleasure.
Take care, man.
Let's do this. We're going to take a quick break, and coming back, we're going to talk more Nets. And we're back. Brian, before Dr. Patel so rudely
it
dropped
was merciful. It's funny, just to break the fourth wall, we've talked about this a little bit. We have opinions about this mandate stuff and the vaccination stuff, and I always get really nervous when I start talking about it. I have thoughts, I want to communicate them, but then I get real qualifier-y about everything because it's a sensitive thing, and we try to toe the line, Mike, the company line. No, just kidding.
We try to be respectful, right? Because ultimately, as much as you and I are pro-vaccine, there are people on the other side of that conversation, and we're both of this. I don't want to be just a jerk.
Nobody wants to steamroll their ideas about this through. But I will say, you did a little Twitter poll recently.
I was surprised by this.
I was honestly blown away by the amount of people that said that they were into us sort of commenting on this stuff. So I am.
Yeah, I put out a Twitter poll. Yeah. I asked everyone, do people actually like when we talk about vaccine mandates? Because, I guess I can say I like talking about them just from a sense of that I mostly understand them more than Like I feel like a lot of reporters who
Would you
maybe
say
cover the team.
You're a savant about following the mandate. Journalism?
If there's an intersection of mandates and sports, that is me. You know, because I covered local politics for a number of years.
Couple of municipalities you covered.
Hardcore
not your
dominant
first
municipalities.
ordinance. We'll say that.
They don't call me Mike Municipalities for nothing. You know what I'm saying?
Nice.
Actually, no one says. But he put out a poll yesterday, and 340 people voted. 335. 2 hours left to vote, so it could change.
Yeah.
65% of the people said they actually like our local vaccine mandate talk. I mean, there's still 36% that don't.
Yeah.
And I think if we just talked about Seth Curry for a whole show, that'd be 100% approval rating. So as a producer, I think, maybe.
You're like, follow the clicks, baby. You're like, give me the clicks. Yeah.
But I think it's important.
As a humanitarian, you got to go. That's the other part of you. That's the push and pull of Mike Municipality.
But before Dr. Patel dropped on, and it was so lovely that he did, you were getting into a very important point. And I think you've come to a realization, and I don't know where I'm at. I mean, I know where I'm at. The fact that if Kyrie doesn't become a full-time player, this season is essentially over. There could be success. You know, they could go to round 2.
I think
or whatever.
You get in a shootout with really great teams like we saw against Dallas. You know, that is where you get a coin toss
without Kyrie.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is not ideal when you have a player of Kyrie's caliber sitting on the bench just waiting there. So what I want to put out there, there's been a lot of people who are pushing back on Eric Adams, and you know that's fine, that's your prerogative. I don't mind that, but I would like to start directing people in the attention of let's get back to rallying around maybe getting Kyrie vaccinated, because that is the agency that we have. That's a thing that we can actually, not we, but like a human, maybe named Kyrie, has control over that could inform the future in a way that waiting for mandates to change, especially in, like I was saying, there's been surges overseas, in Hong Kong especially, there's been a big old spike, and nothing is certain with anything regarding that, like at all. There's just no way to hang your hat on any decision-making coming down from on high. So I also will, like, as just maybe on the very off chance that Kyrie is listening to the show, like I urge you to see that the fans that you're bringing on who are like super into your position on vaccination stuff, I don't believe that they are your fans through and through. I think that they have seized on the opportunity to, they don't love you for your brain the way that it is as a evolving thing. They love you because it's seized on this ideology in this moment of time, and that's the one that they happen to like. As soon as you change course on that could, watch how fast they abandon your brain. Watch how fast.
I mean, it's very much like the red pilling and the Wachowski sisters now. Of, you know, they make this movie about the Matrix. It's really about a lot of things, about love and transformation and all of this stuff. And it's been co-opted by some people to be about, you know, there's a reality that you're not seeing, right?
Sure.
And yeah, sure, the Matrix was kind of about that, but the Wachowskis would, I think, argue it's more about the other things that I said, where Kyrie's like, we still don't have a definitive proof of why he is against vaccinations, right? Like we've seen some things from Matt Sullivan from the Rolling Stone magazine, who has written some good stuff about it. I think Jake Fisher has written some good stuff. Shams Charania of The Athletic has written some stuff. Those are all data points. We still haven't really gotten from Kyrie why he's so, you know, ardently against getting vaccinated. I mean, Kevin Durant, I think, came out after the Magic game, and someone asked him whether he had conversations with Kyrie about getting vaccinated. And he's like, yeah, we talk about it. I told him my position. He told me his, and I just have to respect his. So people are talking to him about it. The thing that you bring up, though, like we should rally around, like I think the reason why we don't, and I know you know this, is that it feels like it's never going to happen. Like,
there's a new plant-based vaccine, Mike, and I feel like, you know, if I'm putting on my ad man cap, as I often do,
sure,
you know, I would be, you know, pointing my finger to that piece of paper that says, hey, brand new, fresh new, super organic vaccine,
sure,
whatever, who cares?
Sending a lot of PDFs, dropping some PDFs in their Adobe Acrobat,
and I, you know, just like, hey, this is a new chance to take another crack at this thing. I'm just saying, we got to figure
great
out.
idea.
We got to figure out something because I want to stack these dubs, Mike. I want to win these chips, and this is in our way. I don't care how it happens. I just have lost faith in the fact that mandates are going to change. I really am agnostic about it. I'm totally neutral at this point. I know that people aren't going to believe me. I don't care. I just want the dude to play, and I feel like this is the way. This is the best chance we have of doing it.
Well, I don't want to say it's funny, but it's interesting that for Nets fans, the thing that feels the most movable is convincing the largest city government in America and one of the largest in the world, probably the largest city government in the world, one that has their own counterterrorism department that has agents, they have NYPD officers in Afghanistan and Iraq and all these places around the world, to convince this giant organization to shift an incredible mandate to carve out an exemption for Kyrie, as opposed to just asking this, not asking, but trying to rally around the idea of asking this one person to get a vaccine that tens and hundreds of millions of people have gotten, right? But that's how clear it is that Kyrie won't get it, that people are choosing the other road, which is putting pressure on local government. Now, you want to say something? Yes, sir.
Well, it kind of leads nicely into this one email that we got that was a
Please.
particularly good
let
one.
me, your boy.
This is from, next up, Sure Girl. This is RC. Sure Girl wanted to use the initials, so we're honoring that. And guys, she did the right thing. She put "Don't read my name" in the top of the email so that.
Do you know her favorite soda?
I do. I think I have. It's a Mr. Pibb. That's a Mr. Pibb. Anyway, she says, did I do it? Okay. RC says, the idea was floated on Michael K. Show, and I've actually seen this in a couple of other places, so I think it was picked up from a couple of places, but Michael K. Show that if private sector mandate isn't lifted by playoff time, the Nets could move games to New Jersey. I believe the Izod Center is sitting empty, or even Long Island. So she goes on to say, the Twitter jokes seem crazy in the past, but, is this even possible? Would the NBA allow it? What logistics would need to happen? How much would it piss off Eric Adams? So I've actually seen this floated around in the Discord a little bit. Shout out to the Discord. God. The invite is in the Twitter bio and in the YouTube description below. Mike, this seems very unlikely to me, to the point where I would put it in, it is likelier that we play in New Jersey because Barclays got hit by a meteor. That's where that is where I put this. I don't think that this is possible.
It's fantasy.
Yeah.
It's truly fantasy. Like, Josiah is an extremely wealthy person, but there are so many interests. Like, he doesn't own the Izod Center. Like, so he doesn't have, like, I'm sure the Izod Center would love this tenant, but how odd would it be that the Nets, who already struggled to kind of build a fan base, is if they then jumped back over the river just for Kyrie Irving so he could play in these home playoff games? This season's kind of already effed,
dude.
Right?
I mean,
like,
you seized on one reason, but let me count the ways in which that can't happen. There's literally like 100 different ways, like equally bad reasons why this can't, or good reasons why this can't happen. Sorry, you were saying.
Oh, I thought you were gonna just
start.
out
I mean, how about like, hey, guess what, season ticket holders? Hope you like, commuting out to New Jersey, like, or it's just a basic.
There's
stuff
so much. The thing about why owners love the playoffs is they make so much money on a playoff run.
Yeah.
I think it's something like $2 to $5 million a home playoff game, something like that. And by shifting it to another stadium, one, Josiah doesn't own it, so we'd have to give some amount of money to those people. There are all the people that work at Barclays that you're telling them, we're not going to pay you, and they justifiably could sue you.
You don't have a job right now because we're kowtowing to the one guy who didn't do what everybody else here did. The optics, we talk about optics too much. The optics of that, let alone the legality, are just heinous.
And think about the NBA fined the Nets $50,000 because Kyrie walked into the locker room. And did they have to do that? They did not have to do that. Yeah. Like, I understand that Kyrie going to the locker room is technically a violation of the city's private employer mandate because they consider the locker room a workspace while sitting in the stands is not a workspace. And that's why it was a violation. But the NBA didn't have to decide to do that. The NBA wouldn't be gung-ho about the idea of taking a team out of New York City and moving it to Newark for the playoff run. Like, the precedent that would set on many levels would be so disruptive to the brand of the NBA. They would be branded as an anti-vax organization,
as taking great efforts to thwart anti-vax efforts or vaccination efforts. It's so bad on so many levels. So I don't know what Michael K. where he fell on this, but I hope and pray that he is echoing some of these thoughts because
but what's been happening. So the biggest piece of news that came out this week relating to vaccines, or not vaccines, the mandate, is that it was confirmed. And it should have been known all the time, but it was confirmed that the Yankees and Mets players that are unvaccinated, which there are many more players in baseball that are unvaccinated than there are in basketball. Basketball is like a remarkably high number of vaccinated players in terms of percentage. Baseball's like, there are many teams below 80% in terms of guys on the field. There's some teams that are maybe like 50% on the field. The Yankees and Mets playing an outdoor game where they're in no way close to the crowd cannot play because they are private employers and they fall into the private employer mandate. Now, Eric Adams, the mayor, has floated that he is talking and trying to figure out, and there's many days until opening day, and that maybe an exception could be, he didn't even say an exception, maybe something could be changed, stuff could be peeled back. The Yankees put out a statement saying that Randy Levine, who I think is one of their owners and the team president, is working with City Hall to try to figure out a solution. Okay, so if anything, the Yankee pressure and the Mets pressure is extremely helpful to the Nets' cause. Opening day is April 7th. The Nets would have 2 home games after April 7th, and then they would have the playoffs. You talk about there's spikes in cases in different places around the world, so it's even tough for us to predict 2 weeks from now what's going to be different here in New York. Everyone that's banking on the fact that the Yankees and Mets thing is going to help Kyrie, there's one major difference. One, baseball's much bigger than the Nets, unfortunately. And 2, it's an outdoor sport versus an indoor sport. And, no matter however we want to talk about science, it's pretty easy to be like, well, they play outside and we let people outside be unvaccinated. We will carve out that exception. But an indoor facility, which has always been treated differently than outdoor facilities, we're going to continue to treat indoor facilities the way we are treating them now. It's a sticky situation.
It's a sticky wicket. Again, I will continue to say that the reason that the city is doing this is to have a foot in the world of mandates writ large, because it is very hard to get mandates in place. They actually poll better than I thought. I went and looked at them, and there's not it's still a plurality, a majority of people that are in favor of mandates specifically the employer mandate. So I don't know, whatever. But
that's because most people in New York are vaccinated, right? Yeah. So if you're vaccinated, why would you not support a mandate? Because you were already in the club.
Yeah.
Not to make too big of a comparable here, but this is going to get very political. You ready for this?
I'm ready.
There's a fair majority of, I won't even go down this road.
Oh, okay.
It's so political.
Yeah, wow. Reverse track. I love that.
I'm just gonna stop it. Okay.
Love that.
It's not even worth it. But here's the thing.
Okay.
There's still the perception problem. There's still this Kyrie sitting courtside, then he can't play basketball. There's still the New York City mandate being just a fodder of content for Fox News.
Yeah.
And all those places. Political organizations don't love that. And I've said this over and over again, and I truly mean this. I am pro-vaccine. I am pro-mandating vaccines in many, many places. But by having these huge loopholes and these glaring public examples, they damage the credibility of all mandates because it gives anti-vax populations a real clean example to be like, this is bad, this is dumb. What is science? This ain't science, right? That is what this Kyrie situation does. So if I was in the inner circle of Mayor Eric Adams, and even if I was wearing a Nets jersey that day, I was wearing my Keith Bogans jersey, I would say to Mayor Adams, this Kyrie situation isn't about Kyrie. You talk about it's being bigger than one person, but it's bad for the totality. If we're trying to have great public health policy that people want to follow, the Kyrie situation is a bad thing to continue to have out there. They should be an exemption for if you're a performer where the audience can be unvaccinated, you yourself are allowed to be a performer and be unvaccinated. If the attendees are allowed to be unvaccinated, you yourself should allow to be unvaccinated. Now that could open up to restaurants, and that's where it gets back to the sticky wicket. But I just think it's bad policy to have something that's so glaringly obvious.
I've waited tables in my life, and I got to tell you, it's a bit of a performance. It's a performance art. There's a whole.
Explain that.
Well, when you get to a table and you kind of read the vibe, you might affect your personality, and just so in order to set the mood just right for the perfect evening.
I would love to see different Brian Egan personalities.
It's like with everybody, I've got a whole totally different person. I'm a complete social chameleon and a psychopath, Mike. But we've hit the perfect amount of time to end our show.
Yes.
We didn't talk too much about basketball, but hey, that's the Nets season this year. So this was maybe, I don't know.
I feel a little bad because that Mavericks game was so incredible in the but there'll be more games.
Everyone watches the games. This is you come to the Glue Guys because you've seen the game and you have all of the high level basketball takes on index cards that are pinned to your refrigerator. Mike, get us out of here.
Hey, listen to us here on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Search the Glue Guys. If you have never found us before, you can search Glue Guys at BK Glue Guys on Twitter. Netsdaily.com, The Athletic. Get yourself behind the paywall. I think it's like $1 a month to get in right now.
It's $1 a month. That's as low as it can go, buddy.
I mean, at this point, if you're not a subscriber to The Athletic, just jump in at $1 a month. I will not be offended if you cancel and you're like, ain't for me. I think you're gonna love it though. You're gonna love being inside this paywall.
I love mine. Hey, thanks everybody. We're out of here. Bye now. Bye Mike.